How are we doing over there?
Should be live streaming in about 2 seconds. Or less. We're good to go.
You ready? All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to call the Moab City Council regular meeting to order on April 11th at 6:04 p.m. And I'm going to ask Chuck to lead us in the pledge this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business, citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to department head report updates, which we don't have any this evening. And then right to presentation, the discussion on the regulations of scooter share operations. Richard's going to be presenting this to you all tonight, and the intent is to just give you some background information on the idea of having scooters in town, and to give Richard some direction on if we want to move forward with the pilot project, or there's a couple other options. I think staff is recommending a pilot. So, Richard.
Right. Thank you. Nice to see you, Mayor and Council, this evening. Give me 1 second. So, there. All right, so I'm here to talk tonight about scooter share operations in Moab. Just a quick update on the scooter shares. They're kind of where around the town there would be staged scooters available for people to just pick up and rent right around the block and then return, hopefully, to a designated location. The city of Moab has been approached by some businesses about setting up scooter share operation. And we believe that it's important to be proactive in setting up regulations around them. Some other cities around Utah were approached and had business licenses approved before they had regulations, and it led to some ambiguities on how to proceed and what regulations should look like. So we think we should be proactive. And it's important to note that an outright ban is not feasible. That's due to Utah State Code 41-6A 1115.1 and some others, basically saying that we cannot be any more restrictive of scooter share operations and e-scooters than we can be of bicycles. I encourage you guys to go to Utah State Code and read 41-6A section 11. There's actually a lot of interesting stuff on bicycles and scooter shares. And again, we basically have to treat scooter shares and e-scooters the same as we do bicycles. We see that as Moab having 3 options. We can do business license regulations where we edit the MMC, the Moab Municipal Code, to provide for some structure around business licenses and how we would enforce them. We could do a request for proposals and have a city contracted service, or we could do a pilot program testing out one or the other. The business license would allow for the city to confirm compliance, and then they'd have to apply every year. And if they don't comply with our regulations, the license can be terminated. The business license route allows for competition between businesses, and this could be good for the customers, providing different options, maybe refining prices and service, but it can also lead to less control over the number of devices that we have in the city. And that's a chief concern, as I understand it. We don't want them littering around everywhere. Edits and additions to the Moab Municipal Code would be required to enforce that.
And one comment on this too, we could maybe we'll get to this, Richard, sorry, I might getting ahead of you. We won't have control over like the quality of the businesses necessarily, like who is acquiring the business license. So would we just sort of be stuck with whoever was interested in it?
The other option is a request for proposals for a contracted service through the city. And, we could choose one business and then we could set the number of scooters that we have in operation. Like, let's just throw 50 out there, for example. Then it'd be a lot easier to control that number than having a whole bunch of other businesses come in and add their own set. Our contract would include, and also the MMC additions for the business licenses could include things like you see here, the number of devices and the maintenance plan, suitable locations for staging and parking, and the right of way. It's important to note that with state code, we do have to allow them to put staging locations in our right of way on sidewalks, at intersections and stuff like that. We could do geofencing. The way I understand it is we could actually put some GIS data in. We can control speed on sidewalks if you allow them sidewalks. We can control speed, like if you're approaching Main Street, they can slow down automatically. If there's any weather problems, they can control the scooters and inform the riders via the app. We can also get performance metrics and data sharing and penalties for noncompliance. And then what I think would be best would be a pilot program, a pilot RFP program, giving us 1 to 2 years to, again, control the number of devices and get a feel for what the service would look like. It could be more adaptable with the data, public input. Maybe the state legislature changes some things up. And what that would look like is after the pilot program, we could continue the contract. We could make a new RFP, a more refined one, or we could switch to the business licenses if we felt that was possibly a better way to go.
Another benefit of an RFP approach is that the relationship is different than with a business license. So if they have a business license, they're just a private corporation here in town. If it's an RFP, if we have a contract with them, we're actually their client. So we have a little bit more influence over their behavior, and they would have a desire to serve us, the city, like administration, kind of like a relationship we have with the MAT provider.
So those are the 3 options. What I really want tonight is some direction on which of those 3 options you guys would like. Again, I'm recommending the pilot. And also, I think we should start considering the MMC regulations, the municipal code. Some current ones are no operation on sidewalks. The language is a little bit ambiguous. I think maybe we would want to change the language up a bit. Anything with the asterisks is something I'd like to revisit. No obstruction on commercial sidewalks, allowable on city paths, and the speed limit on the Mill Creek Parkway. Again, it's a little unclear if the Mill Creek Parkway includes all shared use paths, so we would want to revisit that speed limit as well. And then just to finish off some other final considerations, just to think about, since again, this is just starting the conversation. A lot of these scooter share operations, they also do e-bike shares. Would we be amenable to that idea? Would we want e-scooters on Main Street? It's a UDOT decision but I think our input would help to inform UDOT. And if we did allow them on Main Street, there's a state code about having to remain as far right as possible and leaving room for traffic to pass by. But then, like, if they want to turn left, do they have to go to the crosswalk and then cross, or do we allow them to cut over to the left lane and turn left? Something to think about. Would we want it to be city branded? Should the hours of operation complement Mulberry Transit? Currently, Mulberry Transit is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I think it'd be cool to have this start earlier and end later to give people an option to, if maybe they stayed late, they can still use this to get back home or something like that, or near home. Seasonality, we have a peak and non-peak season for MAT. Would we want to consider that as well? And I think enforcement would be a big thing, a big deal for sure, because this is also a safety issue. If people are misusing these, they're very quiet and they can sneak up on people. So we want to make sure that they're following the regulations that we set. All right, that's it. So if you guys have any input or any questions?
Go ahead,
I have
Ronnie.
a bunch, Richard. So first of all, with like Main Street, since since the state does allow you to ride a bicycle on Main Street, I assume, since we have to treat them, everything's treated the same as a bike, right? So it's kind of it's a moot discussion about whether to allow them on Main Street, right? Because they would be allowed, right?
Well, we
Or
had a
not.
discussion with Main Street sidewalks.
Mhm.
They kind of gave us that control of banning bicycles and whatnot on this Main Street sidewalks.
Right, I get the
think we-
sidewalks, but on the highway itself, I mean, they would be allowed, right? The same way a bicycle could.
We could talk with UDA. I mean, I think
Okay.
if you guys are afraid of that, I think we can at least bring it up with them. It may not be moot. We may actually be able to enforce something like that. where
Okay. I
Maybe
just-
it's just on the crosswalks at Main Street, but
Okay, interesting. And then, let's see. Oh, so I was wondering, so we have options 1 through 3. So if you do a pilot study, how does the partner that you choose to do the pilot get selected? Is that still through an RFP? Because we had our discussions back in 2021, I think, with Bird. So that's what I was trying to get clear on. If we do the pilot, how does this work? Is it by
Yeah.
default an RFP?
I would recommend an RFP or
Okay.
an RFQ, some sort of competitive bidding process.
Okay, so in some ways, the decision between 1 and 2 has some overlap with number 3.
yeah, I guess I wasn't just sure if maybe
Okay,
business
yeah.
licenses could be temporary. I
Gotcha.
don't know, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, given that and the information you've given me, and I'll let someone else talk, I mean, in that sense, because we looked at a pilot back in 21 and I was trying to remember the full history. I think at some point we left it maybe in Bird's court and maybe they didn't pursue it or something like that. I
No,
don't
you're
know.
remembering, we had this
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
with a different council. You were
Yeah.
correct about that. Bird had approached us about, that's why we kind
Yeah.
of went down the line because we anticipated some interest. I think we wanted to complete the transportation master plan first to get information about transportation needs.
Mm.
And we were waiting for that to be completed and it has been for some time. And now we're just having the capacity to revisit it. So that's
Okay.
why we're having, kind of opening up the conversation again.
Okay, so I guess I just say from the information you've given us, I mean, yeah, the pilot still sounds like the way to go, and it sounds like there are advantages with the RFP to, so.
Mhm.
I guess that's money.
Yeah, I think I'm, of the 3 options, probably most inclined to try the pilot program just to get ahead of like private businesses doing this. Cause I have a lot of safety concerns. I like anything Main Street related really. Cause there's no room, even if bikes and like these would be allowed on the street, there's still no room. Like you can't really get out of your car without having to make sure car's not gonna hit you.
yeah.
And our sidewalks definitely don't have the capacity to accommodate these as well. Particularly during busy season, there's a lot of families that are kind of just ambling about aimlessly. And then as we kind of like move further and further away from the center of town, those streets are pretty dark. I think some of them do have lights on them, but yeah, I guess I have a lot of concerns. And so to me, I think a pilot program in conjunction with kind of doing some preliminary like code amendments would make a lot of sense. And then we can kind of gather data and adjust our codes as necessary. But if we feel like these are coming one way or another, I'd like us to have some control and like kind of laying out the groundwork as to like how they'd operate within our community.
Yeah, of course. And I think the geofencing can be pretty intricate. Like you can like highlight sidewalks and you can only go like a mile an hour on sidewalks or something like that is what I read with one of their proposals. And maybe like we can make it so some streets you can go faster, some streets you have to go slower. High visibility would be something that we would want to look into as well for those dark streets.
Great. Thanks, Luke.
Oh, I don't know if we have to all restate it, but having been involved in the 2021 discussions, yeah, it's like a deal breaker for me to allow them on sidewalks. There was very strong feelings about that in 21, and I don't, nothing has changed for me. And I don't know if we're talking about docking and dockless, but I think at the time I'll go back and listen to the discussions. But I mean, I think we had pretty strong feelings about them being situated off Main Street too, just because of the space that gets taken up on the sidewalk.
Yeah. And sidewalks, the way the code, I think the way that Nathan interpreted the code is that we don't allow bikes on any sidewalks in the city. So in that, since we're that restrictive on bikes, we can be that restrictive on e-scooters as well.
I'll just say that in part, having been in other cities and pretty much nearly run over on sidewalks.
Yeah.
Caleb.
I would be in favor of a pilot as well. Couple things that I'd be interested in addressing in that is whether or not violations would go to the company or to the customer. Seems like it'd be more of an incentive to people to behave if they got ticketed instead of we just ding the
Yeah,
vendor.
I think they would be violating traffic laws, the customer, so I do think it would be pointing towards them, and then I'm not 100% sure, so.
But
Be
I'm
careful
also
saying that.
thinking of parking violations if they
Yeah.
abandon them in places
So,
they're not supposed
The
to.
way I understand it is that we can put down specific areas around the city, again, on the right of way, it has to be on the sidewalks and easily accessible. If there's no room in the sidewalks, we have to put it on the streets, we may have to end up taking up parking spaces. But these are geolocated, so you would have to turn it. So when you want to conclude your rental, you return it to this location. And I'm pretty sure you have to take a picture then to show that you parked it appropriately. And then that's just a way for the business to ensure that it was parked appropriately.
Mhm. And then in terms of using downtown parking spaces, maybe this is already answered or irrelevant, but checking with UDOT that if using the stall count was kind of a important factor in the award of the dispersed parking grant money. And so is UDOT okay if we're using some of those counted stalls for scooters? It would be okay? Oh, great. Thanks. For a few.
Undefined. Undefined few.
I'd be open to considering an e-bike or or people bike share program as well. And one of the critiques that's been made of scooters is that they get promoted to replace vehicle, like car trips. But then I've read that some cities are claiming, I'm not sure how they determined this, that they were actually displacing a pretty small fraction of trips, and actually people in the absence of them might have toured, really traveling from one place to another on short distance, might have just chosen to walk.
Oh.
And that a lot of rides were basically pleasure tours.
Yeah.
And we're already dealing with congestion. So given that we have to permit them, that is as it is, but I wonder if part of the pilot could be them, if it's possible, measuring that. To what extent are they providing real last mile solutions versus just another recreation on this particular transportation asset?
It kind of sparked a thought. I'd be interested in potentially seeing if they could partner up with some of the hotels in the area to kind of dock them there to potentially minimize hotel guests like wanting to drive into town.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Galen. Bonnie, looks like you want to see.
I really don't want to have a dog in this fight. I don't even want to look at these. I know I have to. I did watch a video on YouTube the other day where a guy took 12 bags of groceries and a watermelon home on his scooter.
Interesting. I think I saw in this possibly state code that you're not actually allowed to do that. So that could be something.
Far too much engineering. If we have to allow them, I'd much rather have a little more control.
Yeah.
Over the quality of the vendor and because I have no faith that human people are going to behave. I've been around the sun too many times. So yeah, I would be open to a pilot program, and I think partnering with some of the businesses that are a little further out, maybe them right in the downtown core would be more helpful than putting some more stuff downtown.
So I just want to kind of clarify, Carly, you're saying that you think we should do an RFP. Everybody else is saying doing a pilot program, or could we do an RFP
As part of the pilot.
as part of the pilot?
That's the way we would do.
So
the-
we can we can go in and we can create this document that says we want X number of scooters, you know, which
Right.
we would have to kind of base that probably off of something, you know. I'm wondering, is there like a pros and cons list from St. George or from other places who have these things on what has worked well and what hasn't worked well that we could, you know, maybe tap into to make it so that ours, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel on this.
Yeah, I've looked into it a little bit, but I'm not gonna say anything like concrete right now, but there's definitely a lot of case studies to review, and I will certainly do that.
And many cities have done like the RFP pilot project, like that approach. Some have been very permissive with some communities sort of really want them and they kind of open the floodgates. Others like the bigger cities like Salt Lake City have been pretty stringent. You had another question and I wanted to make sure I answered it, but I just slipped my mind.
I think combining the RFP.
Yeah,
and
we're
the
combining the
pilot.
two. And we
Yeah.
might do, I mean, it's worth thinking about, like, if we want to do like an RFSQ, we're just asking for a statement of qualifications, and then we build the program from there, or if we want a proposal from each of these like bidders, we just will have to look into what kind of procurement it best serves the development of the program. So
Is there any benefit to the city, like for this, is there a tax base, you know, like a sales tax on it? Is there anything that gets contributed, like a transportation tax, you know, to help maintain sidewalks or the pathway, Mill Creek pathway or anything like that, that can be kind of tapped into to help with that?
I mean, I assume there is a sales tax associated with the point of sale. Any insight, Ben? They must be, it's a sale, like, yeah, so they would be paying sales tax.
Mhm.
As far as like a fee or something, we would have to collect that based on some sort of improvements, some sort of service that is being paid for when it comes to that. So implementing the program, we can try to look into that. Yeah.
And it would be, there's precedent for cities having it being completely at no cost to the city as well, just to clarify.
No, yeah, and then they would have, whoever does it would be required to maintain them and stuff, because I know like I've been to certain cities and they're in the creek, they're in the bushes, they're hanging from a tree, you know, and just.
So, yeah, one of the regulations is that like every 2 hours, 4 hours or something, you go around town and you redistribute the scooters, you pick them up and redistribute them so that they're evenly distributed, not, you know, heavily located in one area, or if they're in a creek, for example, that they get picked up.
Right.
And then it'd be like maintenance plans as well every night. Pretty sure what it would be is they'd have a warehouse that they would store them in overnight, charge them overnight, and they would have to do all the maintenance and all that to make sure they're running efficiently and safely.
Carly, I don't know if you know or not, does the city have any risk if we do the pilot program with the RFP, or does the vendor assume the risk of injury and?
Yeah, so similar to like
we-
the MAT, we would negotiate something like an indemnification and hold harmless, right?
And
Yeah.
does that mean we have to even up all our sidewalks? So
Yeah.
nobody
Well,
crashes on
hopefully
the-
they won't be on the sidewalks, right? They'll just be the streets, which are just so smooth.
Let's make them all go down King Creek.
Yeah, so it'd be a similar, we'd have a similar structure with like a contractor, you know, MAT, construction company, all of those, yeah.
All right, Richard, it sounds like pilot with the RFP or RFQ. So what's the next step? Is the council going to be able to see what you guys are proposing before we move forward? What are you guys, how will we move forward with this?
I think we
guess
decide on the
I think I'm
procurement.
gonna probably think about, you know, what would regulations look like, great wording for it. Maybe present that to you guys or,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that good with you all, council? Okay. All right, we'll look forward to hear more.
All right,
Thanks, Richard.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. We have 3 items kind of. The first item are 3 proclamations. I'm not going to read, we've got kind of a big agenda, so I'm not going to read through all these proclamations. But the first one is International Dark Sky Week, which is the 15th through the 22nd of April next week. So I encourage everybody to go out and enjoy the stars. You know, I noticed this winter it was so cloudy, we didn't see stars much this winter. So now with these clear skies, let's go out and enjoy them and ponder about how lucky we are. to have such nice clear skies here in Moab. Arbor Day, which is April 28th. Encourage everybody to go plant a tree and maybe go walk in the woods somewhere and enjoy our trees. And lastly, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and that's for the whole month of April. And I think it's important for us to recognize the hard work that survivors of sexual assault have to go through, and the folks that work with those people. So those are our three proclamations that I'd like your acceptance on. Approval of the minutes, March 28th, regular meeting, and approval of the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $1,253,32.18. Motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
All right, we have a motion by Tawny, seconded by Kalen. Any discussion, Tawny?
Nope.
Kalen?
Nope.
Anybody else? Ronnie?
Well, I would just say for the record, one of the things I always enjoyed about the proclamations was that they were read, and in particular because the sexual assault awareness one does mention the need to start conversations. I would just say, personally, I think it's worth the time to read them, but I might be the only one who feels that way.
Any other discussion? All right, motion made by Tawny, seconded by Kalen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I do have those proclamations in the packet. If anybody's interested to read them, please feel free to do so. Next on our agenda is a public hearing on ordinance 2023-05, an ordinance establish a new chapter 13.29 stormwater impact fees in the Moab Municipal Code. And Chuck is going to present this for any public comment. And so I open the public hearing at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. Our consultants, JUB Engineers and Zions Bank Public Finance, have put together the impact fees for stormwater, of which the city hasn't had previously. And what we put in the packet was very close to the final one. But
Your phone
as
is-
it turns out, thanks to Ronnie and Kalen's comments, we went back and looked and saw that we have this issue with our Word documents converting to PDF because they came from our consultant. They had some macros turned on or stuff. So some of what we sent you was not quite exactly it. So we have spent the day getting all the documents in order. There are 3 documents. Recall, there's the impact fee facility plan, there's the impact fee analysis, and then there's the water rates, which council adopted last time. So we have all of those lined up, but I'm going to suggest that if council's amenable to it, that you have the public hearing. We think that that would be a legitimate thing to do. I can answer certainly any questions, 95% of the questions, but the bottom line number by fixing these is going to be a little different. So we could table this till the next council meeting. I would get you all the documents that are all consistent and correct, and that's what I'd recommend, but I'm happy to I'll take a hit for part of it, and I'm going to throw some other of it at Adobe Acrobat and Bill Gates arguing it.
So Chuck, why don't you go ahead and just, talk about the impact fee and the changes. And the good news is the documents were in error, but they were in an error that's in the favor.
That's right. The documents we sent you were for $6,009 and some change, I believe, per acre. Once we looked at because remember we moved all the projects forward in time when we did the rates. By doing that, the impact fees decrease because there's not the accrued interest rate over the longer period of time. So it's down to like $5,500. So the analysis will bring you back is $500 per acre less per impact fee,
Right.
which it's the number. And again, I guess I would say that for everyone watching and for council, that the impact fees are heavily guided by statutory rules and regulations. And so that's what we're following. That's why. So those numbers really aren't subjective by any, they're objective numbers as a result of the impact fee analysis with the impact fee facility plan.
Right, thanks. And so just for transparency purposes, We want to get the correct information out to the public,
Mhm.
allow 2 more weeks for them to review that, and then we can vote on it in the next meeting. Unless you guys have other ideas, but our recommendation is to table that so that the public has a chance to see the real data.
So do we want to table the public hearing also?
No, we're gonna
Oh,
continue the public
have the
hearing
public
and then
hearing
we'll just
tonight?
we'll allow 2 weeks for further comment.
I do have a question about that though, process wise. If the public hearing is the public's opportunity to respond to what's being proposed, shouldn't they have the actual numbers before them to comment on?
Well, since there really isn't anybody here to comment, Lisa, your thoughts on that? I think we, in our conversations this afternoon, we decided to move forward with the public hearing, make the corrections in this meeting so that the public knows what that real numbers is and allow them 2 more weeks to make comments. And then you can make that decision next week. So actually, they do
Okay, so
have,
you're saying you're gonna leave the public hearing open?
yes.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Works.
It isn't unusual for perhaps a council to change the final amounts after hearing the public hearing. So sometimes the actual adopted number isn't even what is initially commented on. So it recognizes that there is an opportunity to adjust the rates before final adoption.
All right, Chuck, why don't you just go ahead with your presentation?
Okay,
Is that it?
That was it.
All right, questions for Chuck?
So, I wondered about, is it the area, just the area, the whole lot that on which the development is occurring?
That's correct. It's the area of the parcel. That is the method that we chose, which is one of the methods. The other method would have been trying to, like with the stormwater rates, going in and figure out impervious area versus impervious area. And that takes up a lot of staff time trying to do that. So
Okay,
and it's in other places that's how they do it. It's just by the parcel.
okay,
So if it's a 5-acre parcel times $5,500 is, 27.5 or whatever that comes to be, the 27,500 total stormwater impact fee as an example.
mhm.
Yeah.
And will it, so if a lot is being redeveloped, would that also trigger the impact fee?
It would, because we haven't had stormwater impact fees before. If we had had them and someone 10 years ago had paid the stormwater impact fee then, we would charge them for that again now. But now, since we haven't had them, it's the new fee, the redevelopment would apply,
Mhm.
or
Okay.
the fee would apply to the redevelopment. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for Chuck? Ronnie?
I had a few from the shared document. So yeah, thanks for addressing the movement of those projects. So when we discussed the water impact fee, we discussed, best practice might have you revisit your culinary water impact fees every 5 years. Can I assume it's the same for a stormwater impact fee?
Yes, the answer is yes. 5 years is the kind of the average for when you revise impact fees, though honestly, it could be between 3 and 7. But standard practice in the industry is every 5 years. And we did that with our sanitary sewer fees, I think. After 5 years that were adopted in 16, we came back and updated them.
Okay, because we originally, I think in our list before the dates moved up, had projects, for the next 10 years, I think listed out
Yep.
at the time up to maybe 2031, but since a lot are accelerating and I think some were will have impacts contribute to them and some won't, but moving up, then I'm guessing it seems to me it makes total sense to revisit it in a few years because by then we probably will have a lot more projects, right? In the
I
In the
believe
list
we'll
or
have at least
in the line.
more of the existing projects still in line, and we might have some new projects. too.
Yeah, okay. And then I was just wondering, either in the packet or before then, maybe it sounds like the next packet is going to be a Whopper, so maybe it saves a little time. Can we get that IFPP so we can just, I don't know if I'll understand it, but I figure
Oh, yeah,
I should look at it.
Yeah, we'll make that available in the next 2 days, so you don't have to wait till agenda packets come out. I just want to double check it one last time tomorrow, so.
Okay, and I just had one question for you, just in the context of the IFA, that I'll just ask now, because I didn't understand it, but I can understand somebody was trying to make a point, so I thought I should try to understand the point they're making. And that was just, in the IFA under Oh, okay. The credits for projects benefiting existing development. It does note, and it makes sense, credits need to be made for the portion of new projects that will benefit existing development. The IFPP identifies portions of the new improvement projects that will benefit existing development. Therefore, a credit must be made for these projects so that new development does not pay twice, once through the collection of an impact fee and then again through increased taxes to offset the portion of the benefit existing development. So in general, from reading all this section on credits, I think I understand it, but what I didn't understand is what taxes are we talking about here? Or do you know?
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's language that comes from the statute.
Oh, okay,
That's why Zions Bank has that in there. They're just,
okay,
if we had the ability to do new taxes
yeah,
for stormwater, which I don't believe we can do anything besides impact fees and rates under the existing statutes.
yeah,
I think that's kind of the coverall that,
okay, thanks. I was
in,
like,
in case we had floods for 5 years in a row, maybe somebody would put in new
Oh.
taxes.
okay,
I'm not predicting that, but
all right, no, thanks. Just thought I'd missed a tax there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions for Chuck? All right, I'm going to, thanks Chuck, open it up for any comment from the public. Seeing none, I think what I'm gonna go ahead and do is close the public hearing. And when you request that you table this for 2 weeks to allow for further public comment to be written to you all, and then we'll take action at our meeting in the 25th. So seeing that there's no comment, I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:40 PM. And ask the council to make a motion to table this ordinance until our April 25th meeting and allow the public to comment on the documents with the correction.
So moved.
All right, have a motion made by Kalen to table the adoption of ordinance 2023 until the April 25th meeting and allow public comment between now and that time.
I'll second.
Second by Tawny. Motion made by Kalen, the table seconded by Tawny. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. So if I was a member of the public and I wanted to comment between now and April 25th, will like an updated document be available soon in case I did want to look at that?
How do you want to deal with that, Chuck? How do we get that out to the public?
we'll post it on our web. We could post it on our website easily.
Okay,
I mean, we'll send it to council, but we'll also, we can post it on the website.
great.
On the engineering department page is where we normally post our studies.
Okay. And then in your email to council with a new document, maybe let them know where they can find it so they can tell residents. Perfect.
Is that something Lisa can just do a little announcement about, so people, maybe helps a few more people on social media to find the link?
Right. All right, motion made by Kalen, seconded by Tawny. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passed 5-0. This will be on our meeting on the 25th. Next, we have a resolution 10-2023, adopting 2023 through 2027 capital improvement project list.
Okay, just a reminder about what the capital improvement project list is. It's a document that we adopt annually. And this serves as a really outline for the coming years and what our prioritization is for our long-term capital projects. It's not a binding document. It simply informs the budget and the budget should reflect these priorities, assuming that we are complete as we compile this list. What I will make one note as it relates to how this document is should be forward thinking and should be balanced over the coming 5 years. If you review the document, you'll see that there's a column for each fiscal year and then 5 years and then beyond 5 years. Just so those projects that we want to keep in mind and the timing of those. If you do the math on it, you'll find that of the total dollars allocated or dollars considered, 43% are allocated in the coming fiscal year, and then that tapers over time. Ideally, a CIP list, a forward-thinking CIP list would be balanced over those 5 years. We could be forward-thinking enough to do that. And the hope is that with strategic asset management plan that we will better be able to inform this CIP next year. So it's kind of more level as opposed to this tapering situation that we have this year. It also doesn't maybe doesn't contemplate correctly the timing of projects. So we have many multiple year projects that will be front loaded in the current fiscal year. But some projects like King Creek Boulevard will take multiple years. And we tried to capture that better this year, but still weren't perfect in that. The one thing that I wanted to mention are this, and specifically call out, are the 7 new projects that weren't included in last year's CIP. So the first would be, and a bulk of these are related to the 2022 flood damage. So I think the first 3 of them are. The first being the bridge riprap repairs that is currently underway. The 2022, there's a kind of a catch-all project there for general flood damage repairs. We have permanent bridge and parkway repairs. So those are the 3 related to the flood. And then Old City Park was an existing project, the redevelopment of Old City Park. And what we did was we split that out into 2 different projects. One was we retained that very general park redevelopment, but we accelerated the project for the pond rehabilitation project, primarily because there was a grant opportunity that will fund that. So that was the reason we split it up into 2 different projects. The Mill Creek chip seal was also included. Historically, we haven't included chip seal projects, even though they exceed the spending threshold to be defined as a capital project. The reason that this was included just because it was a high priority. Spring 2 rebuild, that's one of our water sources. And source generators. So this was originally included in part of the water bond project that we have, that we funded a couple of years ago. And this was included under the water system optimization. And it's simply now broken out for clarity because we have a better idea of the cost and what that entails. As part of the adoption of the CIP list, I would maybe recommend to City Council, a few things have come up since the creation of this agenda. I would recommend a couple amendments as part of the motion to adopt it. One of which would be just a simple correction on the internal cost percentage on the dispersed parking. And that was just a simple math correction. And we also wanted to add water monitoring, which was not included in this. So I'd recommend that as part of the motion, we include those 2 adjustments from what was presented in the packet. So with that, definitely open to questions and turn it back to the council.
Great, thanks, Ben. Questions for Ben?
Ben, so I think one of the questions I'd posted for you was, this gets confusing, but do we have a bunch of different capital improvement lists? Because what gets confusing for me is, like, we discussed stormwater rates and how raising the rate will allow us, to do these additional, whatever, 11 to 14 projects sooner. And, their capital improvement projects. So should I be using different vocabulary for different lists, or is there a reason, say, those 11 to 14 projects, since they are expected to happen in, by fiscal year 26, that they're not on here? Help me out.
Yeah, I think that really comes into play into how we're incorporating all of the kind of different projects that are at play here. So when I mentioned the strategic asset management plan, that should hopefully kind of bring everything together, all of these existing plans and needs, and bring that into one place that could be represented in the CIP. So that would be a reason for any omissions between the 2, is because there's not a reconciliation yet between various plans that have been adopted over the years and the CIP. They're essentially these different conversations happening without that reconciliation process.
So if I was going to give someone a little elevator speech, to explain the difference between the projects that end up on the CIP list versus a plan list, how would I explain that? Because personally, I still don't understand who ends up where.
Yeah, I mean, it's also important to understand the context of the timing of the CIP list, because it's a 5-year plan. A lot of times these bond projects exceed that 5 years. And yeah, I think that's simply that's one reason. There's probably various reasons depending on the project type. Some may not reach the capitalization threshold and not even be considered a capital project.
What is that threshold?
$50,000.
Any other questions for Ben?
Yeah, if I may, just
Yeah, sure.
Ronnie, one of the things that as we go, might be another perspective, for the water, sewer and stormwater, we package the largest projects into the bond programs, right? So sometimes that accelerates them up sooner in time, even though they're anticipated on the CIP. Maybe not everyone is listed on the CIP, but a lot of them are. So because it's harder to save money for the $1.5 million projects than it is for the $75,000 projects, as an example. So I think that's sometimes the reconciliation between what we do for bonds and what we do for CIP presentation.
Okay, so if I was having a conversation with someone and they said, I'm having trouble following all this, I should probably in the end tell them, we're going to have this great new strategic asset management plan and you'll be able to look at everything in one place. Is that maybe the? Okay. Thank you. Oh, one other question. So I understand the amendment suggestion, but what was the thought, since it's not on here, is the water monitoring just a placeholder? Because along with recent discussions about monitoring is certainly modeling, and I didn't know if they were considered like Tweedledee and Tweedledum and they go together, or if this is only specifically monitoring, and if there's a dollar amount attached, or if it's kind of a placeholder for discussion about what that's going to cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think CIP in and of itself is really a placeholder. A project being on this list, it's the budget document that really funds a project, and as well as a procurement policy. So that said, I mean, I think I can't speak specifically to the water monitoring project and distinctions among it. Probably Chuck or Carly would be able to better speak to that.
Okay, I mean, I would personally be more comfortable if we were going to amend this motion that it talk about monitoring and modeling, just because there's been discussion in the community that we need to keep collecting data, but we may now have sufficient data to start modeling, and the county taking steps to start doing that. So
I think that monitoring is appropriate to be on a CIP list because it is infrastructure. It's expensive. It's basically drilling wells everywhere, not everywhere, as many places as we can with whatever amount of money we can kind of pull out of the water utility fund. I don't know that modeling is an asset that is a capital asset. I would say that that's like a study or a program, so probably not on this list. But the water monitoring is a physical asset.
And would that be 24, 25?
We have a lot of proposals for monitoring. The state engineer has been pushing it for a while. I think it would be best to just see what money we can come up with, because a lot of the jurisdictions are talking about sharing in this effort, including the state, the county, GWISA. So just some money to have budgeted for a potential project or projects. And we do have to come up with a comfortable amount. We could spend a lot of money on it, probably don't have that capacity in the next 5 years, but at least we can get the ball moving.
Galen.
You may have already answered this, but how should we think about the 400 North Roundabout? Given that it's scheduled for FYE 24, but the numbers no longer match what's on here.
Yeah, so the 400 North Roundabout was a carry forward project. The numbers weren't changed from the prior year, knowing that there have been some cost escalations built into that. I think for me, the reason that I left it as originally designated is because the design costs that the city is likely responsible for are captured in those internal costs. So it's about, $80,000 to $100,000. And so from a financial perspective, without this not being a real decision of the council, it's almost like deferring that decision for the time being.
Okay.
While still allocating the costs that the city will incur as part of the design.
I just want to make sure I heard that right. So you said the design costs are probably 80 to 100,000, only because at a time we had heard multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I want to make sure. Yeah.
300.
Yeah, and happy to allow Chuck to.
Okay.
Late breaking news from UDOT. is that, if we're liable for money, it will be the 100,000, which I think was in the original, it's 101,000 or something was in the agreement that we signed with them. That would be the maximum.
Oh, that's good news.
And that's like 2-week-old news.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
but there, we're waiting to make sure we even know that. So,
100,000 maximum for design.
yes, if the
Yes.
project didn't
That we
move
be on the
forward,
hook.
if the project didn't move forward, that'd
Yes.
be the maximum amount of money we'd be responsible
Mhm.
to pay UDOT for.
Can I just ask a question? Well, okay, I'll ask maybe separately about that, but I mean, looking back on the documents that date back to, what was this, August of 2021 on this, I mean, if you go back and you look at like the initial discussions we had and motions that were given and discussions about the Joint Highway Committee, Small Urban Funds Program, SDP, providing monies, there was a comment in there that the city, I mean, now since we're talking about cost overruns, that the city and UDOT could request UDOT Transportation Commission, additional funding up to $600,000. I just didn't know if that had ever, for those of you who are discussing it, if anybody's looked back on that.
So it's about a $2.5 million price
Mhm.
tag right now, 2.6. And UDOT the Joint Highway Committee has committed to contributing 500,000 on top of it. So on top of UDOT's original 1 million, they picked up that additional 500,000. They've committed to that. But it still leaves the city, responsible for the overage.
Okay, thanks for helping me connect the history there.
Anybody else questions for Chuck? I'll ask for a motion to approve resolution 10-2023 with amendment to correct the internal costs and add water monitoring.
So moved.
I'm not, you guys are supposed to make the motions. All right, so we have a motion by Kalen, seconded by Luke. Any discussion, Kalen?
No.
Luke? Anybody else? No. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ben and Chuck. Next, we have Alexi to talk to us about the contract award for the Sustainability Action Plan. And Kaylin, I believe you are involved in this process?
I was on the selection committee.
Yeah, great, good. Alexi.
Okay, we posted an RFP for a consultant to help us with the sustainability plan. We received 5 proposals and the committee requested some clarifications from them so we can compare all the plans evenly, and we scored them on qualifications of the team, their experience, references, their approach to the project, and the price. After scoring the proposals and evaluating them as a group, the committee is recommending Brendel Group to be our consultant for the sustainability plan. We especially appreciated their experience and expertise in sustainability planning in particular, including setting very specific goals, impact driven, which is kind of what we're looking for with our action plan. They've worked with Moab before through Rocky Mountain Power Watt Smart program, which is a program that they designed. And our project manager also has experience in local government, having worked for one prior to Brendel. They've completed sustainability plans for several communities as well, and we also checked references with a community who had worked with them. We were also interested in their ability to understand our community's needs. So Brendel proposed to make an inclusive outreach plan with us, and the reference I spoke with was really satisfied with their ability to conduct outreach with the community and understand what kind of plan they were looking for and what the community needed. And also set some actionable goals. Also through the process, they provided some examples of surveys that they've used for similar planning efforts in other communities, and in the sustainability plans that we've seen that they've worked on, they were able to connect existing goals of the city and capacity of staff and create specific strategies to prioritize projects on the timeline. So their proposal came in right on budget with one trip. Altogether, the committee that was evaluating the proposals felt Brendel offered the best proposal to develop a sustainability action plan for Moab. And I also invited them today so that they can give you a bit more information on their team and help answer questions if you have any. So I'm going to turn it over to Shelby and Imogen.
Great. Well, thank you. Would it be helpful if we provide a few slides, or would you rather us just kind of quickly introduce ourselves and then cover the bases that way?
Why don't you just introduce yourselves and then any questions that council might have for you or Alexi? Unless you have something you'd like to prepare and share with us.
We're happy to just keep it verbal.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you. So good evening, council members. My name is Shelby Summer. I am the Director of Planning at Brendel Group, and I will serve as the Executive Project Manager. So my background and experience is in public administration, and I love working with local governments on sustainability issues. So as an organization, our mission is to accelerate equitable solutions to the climate crisis. And so this project is just squarely in our wheelhouse. It's something we're passionate about. And we also just have a niche in working with communities across the West in Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Montana. So we understand issues like you all are facing related to drought and air quality, light pollution, and a visitor population. And so we're really excited to dive in and get really tactical with you all on specific goals and listening to the community and really developing a plan that plays to your strengths and is very actionable. So I'll pass it over to Imogen to share a little bit more about her background as our project manager and just our approach.
Hi, my name is Imogen Ainsworth, and I'm a senior sustainability analyst and will be the project manager on this project. Very excited to work with Moab. As Alexi mentioned, I have previous experience working in local government in the city of Durango, so not so very far away, and I was the sustainability coordinator there for 5 years, and I've spent a lot of time in Moab, including several months when my husband was working at the hospital. So just some personal connections to the community, as well as kind of building on our experience working and developing sustainability plans for communities across the Mountain West. I think maybe just a little bit about our approach to this project. I think just really kind of seeing ourselves as an extension of the team there at the city. We organized the approach around 5 core tasks. So really centering around kind of strong project management and that inclusive community engagement that Alexi mentioned. We'd like to work closely with city staff and community members just to make sure that we're developing a plan that's relevant and actionable for Moab. Beginning kind of from that recognition that this isn't starting from scratch, that Moab has already done a lot of work on sustainability, and making sure that this effort is kind of leveraging and building upon the work that's already happened, to develop a truly actionable plan for the community going forward. Some of the community engagement aspects that we built into the proposal include that survey that Alexi mentioned, as well as working with a technical advisory committee to kind of provide that sort of local expert and stakeholder input throughout the plan development process. And so kind of doing this sort of inventory of existing conditions, asking where are we now, where are there gaps, where are there opportunities that we could fill through this plan and through sustainability work at Moab. Developing those SMART goals, so thinking about where do we want to go and how are we going to measure progress towards those goals, and then working to identify and prioritize strategies that are specific to Moab, again with that input from the community, from the city team, and from the technical advisory committee as well. And so just kind of as a sort of preview to sort of what we're thinking in terms of the deliverables for the project. So kind of 3 sections to this. The first being a concise and engaging sustainability action plan. So something that's visually attractive and digitally accessible, something that the public can get excited about and get behind as kind of a tool for implementation in the community as well. The second is more of sort of that strategy register and tracking tool. So really that full register of kind of potential strategies that were considered as part of the plan, as well as a tool for tracking progress. So being able to track over time progress towards those goals and towards implementing the strategies that were identified through the plan development. And then the third piece is this work plan template, and also building out a work plan for 6 priority strategies to kind of set the city up for implementation. So our intent is not just to put together a plan that kind of sits on a shelf, but really make sure that the city is ready to move forward with implementing those priority strategies that are developed with community input through the process.
Great, thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, you have more?
The only other thing I was going to mention was just the timeline for the project.
Okay.
So with thinking about 8 months from start to finish. So if it were to start in April, we'd be wrapping things up around November.
Great, thanks so much. Questions, council, for Alexi or the Brindle Group? No questions?
I have a question, but it's more for colleagues, so I can wait.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
I move to approve a sustainability action plan contract with Brindle Group in the amount of $50,000.
Motion made by Kalen, second. A second. Seconded by Tawny. Any discussion, Kalen?
I'm very pleased that we're at this stage and going to bring a qualified consultant on, and it was close between, there was a number of responsive proposals. But I feel like we, and especially Alexi, really guided the process well, and I'm confident in this selection.
Great, thanks, Kalen. Tawny?
Just thank you, Lexi, for picking this up kind of on day 2 and getting us to this point, and it will be nice to see this completed.
Any other comment, discussion from council? Ronnie?
I just have one. So, I mean, obviously saw that we had some options here, on how many in-person trips the consultants were making, and, you know, $50,000, I think is clean and neat, and granted, we don't have money to be throwing around, but, I did notice that they did give us the option, of a second in-person trip that would include, I think it was an in-person, Alexi can help me, but workshop, and then also a meeting with the public. And so I had asked in the shared document, Alexi, about, you know, some of the pros and cons of, you know, it's $6,900 extra dollars. So obviously that's no small fish, but I was just trying to put in perspective the value of having that happen in person, given we went through our community vision process, and a lot of our community told us that they liked the engagement. And it sounds like we can do a community meeting with or without the consultants, but there might be some advantages to having an outside party there. Sometimes it builds a little bit more trust with the community, or you have a moderator. So I don't know, just having read this, I just personally trying to weigh the pros, especially having coming out of that community vision and our community being excited about opportunities, about whether that was something the rest of the council thought was worth adding. So I guess that's a question for the rest of you. Yeah.
Why did you choose to just do one in person?
We did one in person because the original budget had been $50,000. That was the reason we did that.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of the reason I ask is, I mean, we had a water plan where we didn't initially include public involvement. We added another 200 grand for that to make that possible. So I guess I'm asking colleagues, I don't know, do we think it's worth $6,900? Or, I mean, obviously we can have staff do it. I need a little help thinking that one through. And since I wasn't on the committee, I'll let you guys.
Well, there's a motion on the table that's been seconded to approve the contract with Brindle for $50,000. So if you want to make a substitute motion to include 6,900, so that would increase the amount to 59,600 or 56,900. You can do that, and then we can see where that falls.
Well, I mean, the whole idea was to give colleagues an opportunity to weigh in if they think there's value to that. So I can make a substitute motion, but I am kind of curious if any of them think there's value, because otherwise there's no point in making a substitute motion.
Well, I think there's value. I'm just not sure how it would play out in the budget.
Right.
This is being budgeted we're making the allocation in the current year fiscal budget, but then this project will continue into the next budget, correct?
We can find the money. Yeah. If it's a priority for the council, I wouldn't worry about that dollar amount.
Could we add it on later if we find that things aren't going?
Mhm.
Could we amend it?
Yeah, we could do a change order.
I mean, I kind of agree with Ronnie that maybe approve the 56,900 and then keep it the way it is. And then if we feel that we need to have them come for the second in-person.
Okay, well, I mean, I know consultants have to plan in advance and Alexi has to plan. So I guess I will make a substitute motion with Kaylin and Tawny's willingness that we go ahead and approve the proposal that was given, but instead of the 50,000 that we approve it for the 56,900 so that we can include this added in-person involvement. And somebody can tweak that if I said that wrong.
Okay, so you're making a substitute motion to approve the contract with an increased amount of $56,900 to allow for another in-person meeting.
I'm suggesting that we increase the standing $50,000 up to $56,900, not an additional $56,000. So yes, for a total of $56,900 to include, so we can make
More
this
public
in-person
engagement.
trip to as described in the
Okay.
in the
All right,
document.
so we have a substitute motion, but the original motion's been put on the table by Kaylin, seconded by Tawny. So what we need to do is call for the vote on that question and then vote on the substitute motion. So we have a motion by Kaylin, seconded by Tawny. Going to call for the vote. All in favor of that motion? Okay, all opposed? All right, motion fails. 0-5. And substitute motion to increase the amount of the contract up to 56,900 for increased public engagement. I need, Ronnie made that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jason. Any further discussion, Ronnie?
I guess my only question would be, this was a change maybe coming into this meeting and with the agenda that Alexi and the consultants weren't anticipating. So I guess, before passing something that all of a sudden you guys want to run to the hills and say, no, thank you. I guess I do need to know, if you guys have objections.
They've bid
Yeah.
on it. So that if they included it in their
Yeah.
proposal, it's something they've offered.
Okay, thanks. It's not
Yeah,
something we
it's
do
ours to
often,
take if we
so,
want it.
okay. Yep, I got nothing else.
All right, thanks. Any other discussion? Oh, Jason, do you have anything? All right, anybody else? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
I
Any opposed? All right, substitute motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Look forward to working with you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
so much.
All right, next up, we have a discussion on a consideration of the consultant recommendation for Walnut Lane redevelopment. Ben's going to present that to us. Kaylin and Luke were also a part of this selection process. And just for clarification purposes, this vote tonight is just to start entering into the negotiations of a contract with this organization. So you guys will see the contract. We'll be involved in more details about what that contract is going to look like. So that's what you're considering tonight. And we also have, I guess, folks from
Columbus Pacific.
Columbus. Thank you. I knew that. I did really know that. Columbus Pacific here. So if you have any questions for them, and we're just going to start out with Ben.
Yeah, I guess Columbus Pacific and Partners is probably technically correct. As you know, we as a city published a request for statement of qualifications for the redevelopment of the Walnut Lane, the city-owned property at Walnut Lane. We received 2 responses from both were very highly qualified developers that they both presented very compelling presentations, and they were both responsive, and we interviewed them both as a selection committee, and really couldn't be happier. Oftentimes receiving only 2 responses on a bid like this can be frustrating, but we're really happy with being able to compare those 2 side by side, knowing that they were highly recommended, highly qualified. As a selection committee, we're excited to be able to recommend Columbus Pacific Development and team to move this project along. I would say that one of the things we really appreciated about Columbus Pacific was their willingness to understand the needs of the community and establish that really before moving forward with the project. I would say that one of the most relevant projects that they've recently undertaken was the Slopeside project at Park City, in which they really did a robust community engagement in order to understand the needs and built a project around that. And that project has been hugely successful. So I'd like to thank the selection committee for the time, Luke, Kaylin, very helpful, and kind of just turn it over to Columbus Pacific for an introduction, and then we'll move into like a question period. So.
Happy to. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I'm Tony Tyler with Columbus Pacific Development. I run all of our ground up development from our office in Park City. So with me are our two partners. So Gary Sikora is with our construction company. So he runs Mountain Pacific Construction. They are a partnership entity. So the same owners that own the development company also own the GC. So we like to control that process a little bit on our side. And then on our design, from our design team perspective, Sid Ostergaard is here with Elliott Work Group. He's a partnering company and has been working with us on this project. So I guess first and foremost, really appreciate the opportunity. We've spoken in detail with Ben and the team about our specific response to the RFSQ. In our case, we really viewed it as a request for qualifications. So we wanted to show you what we can do, not what we will do. Because what we will do, I think, is going to be determined by, a very well thought out but deliberate process, to determine what the best needs of your community look like in this project specifically. So I actually was first made aware of this project a few years ago. I met with Nora, who I knew from my time in Park City. At the time it was dedicated to another developer. And I think the foresight that you guys had to acquire that parcel in 2018 is pretty incredible. So the opportunity to work with an organization like the city here, I think is very unusual in our world and very much needed as well. So I'll just kind of stop there because if you have any questions for us, I want to make sure that we've got time available.
Great. Thank you. Questions? I'm just waiting for Ronnie because I know she has some questions.
Oh, no, I mean, actually, we have a shared document where it's encouraged to ask questions on ahead of time. So Ben did a great job of answering questions I had. So not having been on the committee, I just wanted to thank the committee members because yeah, going through one of these was great, but work. And so I can imagine going through two. So I just want to thank you guys for the thought and the time you put into this because it definitely came through. So I'm definitely intrigued, and I understand you guys have, assuming we approve this, a few inconsistencies to work through. So thanks for being willing to look back at that. But yeah, very exciting to look at possibilities. Yeah. So thanks for all the expertise you bring and willingness to take on stuff like this.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? I think this has been a long time coming. We're kind of ready to just move forward. I think it's where we're at with this. Kaylin, do you have anything you'd like to add, or Luke, since you were a part of this?
No question, just excited to be moving forward on this, and really hoping that we can kind of work through and start making some meaningful moves on this. Is something that's desperately needed in this community, and really excited to be working or potentially be working with an organization that has experience kind of in this in a similar capacity. And then already I think is trying to establish some other connections within the community. And so an organization that will have an understanding of kind of the needs of Moab from several different perspectives, I think is going to be really beneficial for this entire process.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I'm really pleased at the level of expertise that we received in response to the RFSQ, and I am on board with this choice personally. And I do have one question, but it's more an internal one, which I tried to answer beforehand, but not entirely successfully. And that's about our own internal capacity to be a responsible partner in this sort of project. Because I feel like it is going to be a bit of a jump for the city. And Carly, you said that the city was trying to recruit a housing director.
Yes, we have rebranded the Affordable Housing Manager because we didn't think it was broad enough to include all of the duties of that individual.
Okay, and is that in addition to the community development
Mhm.
director?
Yes, yeah, this is the community development director is kind of a brand new position. And the affordable housing or the housing director is just kind of a revamp of Caitlin Meyer's position, if you remember that. Yeah.
Okay, and it's been so long since I looked at the organizational chart and this year's budget, but both those, that position is both budgeted for and in the org chart? Okay.
Yes, yeah. And so the housing director would report to the CDD.
Okay.
Report to me.
Or you, if you.
Or me. It will be me for a little bit. In the meantime, I will also wear the hat of housing director as we negotiate with our new partners. So,
And we hope to have both of those positions filled here in the
Yeah.
next couple of months. So they're out right now.
I would add that we have, we have recent experience of doing exactly this, with Summit County. And so, from our perspective, we'd be happy to be driving the bus here, right? So it's much easier to edit than create. And so I think from our perspective, we can create documents to have you guys review and respond to, as opposed to having, you guys create them and to help understand and, help with that capacity issue, at least in the interim basis. So that's something that we're quite familiar with and certainly can do.
Great, good. Any other questions or comments?
I'm just shocked that it's really only just been 5 years that I've laid awake and worried about it all night. It seems like much longer. than that.
Insomnia will do that to you. Loss of perspective.
Or I wake up
5
at
years is a
3.
long time.
I wake up at 3 o'clock going, when are we gonna get that done? This almost feels like a relief. When we acquired this property, I thought this is a good thing. We are protecting that. And lots of times in that awake time, I have wondered if we really did the smart thing. We learned that we are not developers and we're not very good landlords. But our former mayor had a vision and she sold it. So I'm glad to see this coming together.
Anything else? I'll ask for a motion.
I move to direct staff to begin negotiations with Columbus Pacific to propose a pre-development agreement, which will be presented to the city council for consideration.
Motion made by Kaylin, second. Seconded by Luke.
That's okay. Go ahead.
You've done enough tonight.
I
All right.
haven't broken anything yet.
All right, we have a motion made by Kaylin to approve the contract for Walnut Lane redevelopment and seconded by Luke. Any discussion, Kaylin? Luke? Anybody else? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Great. Welcome aboard, you guys.
Thank you
A
so much.
lot of work to do.
Yeah, we couldn't be more excited. So, thank you.
Yeah, right. Thanks, you guys, for coming. Good to see you.
Likewise.
All right, up now is Anna and Corey. We have 3 items for your consideration this evening. From the planning department, the first item is a little complicated. It's the consolidation. There's 2 consolidations, 2 resolutions, resolution 09-2023 and number 11-2023 resolution approving a lot consolidation properties located at 696 and 702 Palisades Drive and 714 and 706 Palisade Drive in Moab, Utah, 84532. So Corey, Anna, you're up.
Good evening. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
You need it.
The mask is just because I was traveling today, so feeling fine. If it doesn't sound to be interfering, but let me know if it is. For the first time, I do have additional materials if we'd like to
walk through those because it is a little bit more of a unique action that's being taken, but I understand that there was some discussion during pre-council gathering with how this is being done. So I'll leave it to the council if you'd like to dive a little bit closer in. I have those exhibits ready.
Oh, I think we're good, Corey.
Okay.
So do we have any questions for Corey or Anna?
I guess I was just curious. I mean, obviously I read everything, Corey. The fact that it's been doing simultaneously, does that have to do with the fact that it's neighbors and it's a twin home lot? Is there anything specific?
Yes, in
Okay,
order to
yeah.
maintain the
Yeah.
conforming lot nature,
Yeah.
being that the twin home was already a sub-split type lot, is you could not take one action on its own because the standalone twin home wouldn't be sufficient to construct any lot. So the analogy, and forgive me in this case, is the Indiana Jones move, is that we're pulling both consolidations in a single action is to not create non-conforming lots.
Okay. And I imagine there might be a lot of reasons that someone wants to do this, but just for those of us who aren't developers, I guess it gives you a little bit more flexibility of what will happen on that property.
To the best of my
Consolidate.
awareness, yeah, on
Yeah.
at least one of the lots is that they're just expanding their yard
Yeah.
space. It's a fairly tight subdivision as is.
Yeah.
So the absorbed side yard is just going to become more of a rec space buffering area for those people. I'm
Okay.
not sure it's the
Yeah.
neighborhood north, but we typically won't see this as a reoccurring.
Okay.
I know that was part of your question as well.
Thanks.
Is this going to be a trend? I doubt it very much. It's almost going the other way is what we see more typically happening.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I'll ask for a motion. You're approving 2 resolutions tonight to consolidate 4 lots, correct? 2 lots?
Correct.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, the way the motion is written in particular is going to allow us to have this action occur simultaneously with resolution 09 and 11 within the same motion.
Go ahead,
All
Luke.
right, I can go ahead. I move that the Moab City Council approve Moab City Resolutions 09-2023 and 11-2023, approving the simultaneous lot consolidations of properties located at 696 Palisade Drive, Lot 56, and 702 Palisade Drive, Lot 55B in Moab, Utah, 84532, and properties located at 714 Palisade Drive, Lot 54, and 706 Palisade Drive, Lot 55A in Moab, Utah, 84532.
Thanks, Luke. Second?
I'll
I can
second.
second. Yeah. It would beat me.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Luke, seconded by Kalen. Any discussion, Luke?
Nope.
Kalen?
Nope.
Anybody else? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, next we have consideration of a development agreement for Aggie Apartment Phase 3 located at 1492 South Aggie Boulevard and Highway 191, Moab, Utah, 84532, between Clyde Moab LLC and the city of Moab.
Oh, thank you.
And I understand that the development, the applicants are requesting that we include a student aspect of the active employee housing. And
We spoke.
We have, and it was
in there.
contained within the agreement.
Okay.
So just discrepancy on the baseline zoning of active employment housing, how that had not been incorporated during that original adoption, but is in the development agreement. So that component is covered, that this
Okay.
area will be approved for students, faculty members, and visiting student and faculty staff.
And then the other request, I think, was it's 2 to 5 years for the completing of the project.
Correct.
Instead of 2.
And the determination's been made to maintain the agreement as is, as that is a diligently pursuing construction element, not a actual construction completion component. So the lapsing element is not as critical as it was initially perceived.
Okay, so the development agreement will stay as is.
It
That's
essentially
what-
ensure
essentially-
that they move forward within 2 years with the site plan.
Got it.
So they'll be unable to sit without any progress on the lot, both process wise or construction
It's great.
for that 2 years.
Good, good. Okay. Questions for staff? Anna, did you have, you want to make a presentation, I guess?
No, I mean, if there's no questions about the development agreement, I'm fine with the conversation we already had.
Okay.
There's
Yeah.
two components we do want to bring up of kind of the final language edits, just to make sure that we're in compliance with both the development group and then within our own requirements. So, Anna, if you have the DA, I think we just want to pull that up quickly to show what will be recital A will have a minor change, and then the very last line of the agreement was basically taken from one of our original templates that utilized a resolution capacity because there were multiple elements to that original development agreement approval. Whereas tonight we're purely just approving the agreement on its own as a standalone approval document. So there will not be a resolution attached to this. You tonight are approving the agreement. So it's a language element in the template that we're going to be striking. Anna's made those edits already. It's a staff recommendation that we're basically is a language error that we failed to
So
amend prior.
I think the biggest thing is that the applicant wanted the first, basically the first portion of the development agreement to be a little bit clearer about who who they're making the agreement with and what the dates were and all that type of thing. And so we'll probably go ahead and add that into the development agreement. And then there were a couple, there was just like one other minor changes, a few other minor changes where we needed to add the exact people who would be signing the development agreement into the document. So those are the biggest changes that we are making.
You would have seen those as insert or highlighted sections where they're blank. We knew that the turnaround was tight on this, so we've done those, completed those amendments for tonight's approval.
So would the motion then include the approval of the agreement with the corrections that you presented?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay. All right. I'll ask for a motion unless there's other questions.
I guess I just have one I asked on the shared document that I didn't see a response to, but it could be nobody knows. I was just curious, what do we know about other university towns who've done deed restrictions connected to student housing? Do we know if like 50 years is a standard, or do we know about the range of that? I don't know if anybody's looked into it.
So I have asked our attorneys and I've asked the applicant and staff has not yet conducted any of those type of researches for development agreements with colleges. So, and yeah, we don't have any information on that.
The 50 years that we did pull is consistent with our active employment household ordinance, and being as that's the base structure of what this agreement is we wanted that to coordinate cleanly so that as we're regulating it, it's not regulated independently or enforced in a different fashion that we would have to create new mechanisms for enforcement. So it's built consistently within our existing ordinances.
Okay, thanks. They do recall actually the second bidder on the Walnut Lane project. I think they did mention that 50 years is standard for them. Is that right? And they do college housing, a lot of college housing.
Kaylin.
So this is sort of high level, and I'm sorry if I missed it before, but I'm unclear why the rezone, because the master plan identified this as student housing. It's currently zoned as R4, which is our most accommodating residential zone. And I get that C4 would give them an additional 5 feet of height, and maybe the parking parameters, or I don't know. I'm just struggling I've been going through the code and I'm just struggling to understand why are we going through all this?
Sure. That's a great question, Anna, if you want
to
respond first.
Let me see if I can't get on the page that clearly shows all a good answer for that question. So if you look at what the current zoning is, this is part of a phase 1 and then a second phase. The phase 1 we've already approved and it's in the permitting process right now. It was primarily a commercial zoning district. And what they want to do is continue that zoning for the second phase so that it will be consistent and they can have the same density of housing as what they did during the phase one. And so, the biggest thing that they will get is the additional height, which will also allow them to have more units. So, that's the reason why they want the rezone. And then this also just kind of their current zoning map, and then we've also got the what the difference is between the R4 manufactured housing residential and then C4 commercial, general commercial. And part of the reason for the development agreement was to ensure that it would be developed as a residential use. So that that was a lot of the reason why it took as long as it did for us to get to city council as well.
So if something happens and it doesn't get developed as residential, would it revert back to?
Yes, the development agreement where it says that if it doesn't happen, and if it also puts a time limit on it too, where if it doesn't happen in 2 years, then it reverts back to R4.
Any other questions? Motion. Do you want it on paper?
No, it's just such a long agenda. item.
Do you want me to read the motion?
No, absolutely not.
I got it. I move that the Moab City Council conditionally approve ordinance number 2023-01, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for 11.57 acres of a parcel located at approximately 1492 South Highway 191 Aggie Boulevard.
Luke, I think that's the next item.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to pull that up quickly.
We got to do the development agreement first before we give them
Yeah.
the rezone, otherwise we're in trouble.
Okay, got
I was looking as I
They're over there going, okay, yeah.
That's what I was looking for was the development agreement and I couldn't find it.
Okay, I think I have the right one up. Double checking now. Yes. I move that the Moab City Council approve the Aggie Apartments Phase 3 development agreement associated with the Aggie Phase 3 rezone of 11.57 acres of a parcel located at approximately 1492 South Highway 191, Moab, Utah, parcel number 01-0018-0002 between Clyde Moab LLC and the city of Moab with the following conditions. 1, all comments shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the Moab City Planning Director, including a signature of current ownership is provided on development agreement, and any amendments made to proposed ordinance number 2023-01, Aggie Phase 3 rezone shall be reflected on the final development agreement.
And the corrections that were presented this evening.
And the corrections are presented this evening.
Great. Thanks, Luke. That was a big motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion by Luke, seconded by Jason. Any further discussion, Luke? Jason?
No.
Anybody else? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have the rezone. A consideration of the adoption of ordinance number 2023-01, an ordinance conditionally approving a zoning map amendment for 11.57 acres of parcel located at 1492 South Aggie Boulevard and Highway 191, Moab, Utah 84532 from R4 manufactured housing resident to zone C4 general commercial.
I think Luke's on a roll.
Sure. Can I just start where I left off?
Yeah.
Right, so I move that the Moab City Council conditionally approve ordinance number 2023-01, ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for 11.57 acres of a parcel located at approximately 1492 South Highway 191, from R4 manufactured housing residential zone to C4 general commercial zone with the following conditions. All comments shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the Moab City Planning Director and Moab City Engineer, including the Aggie Apartments Phase 3 Development Agreement, shall be completed prior to adoption of ordinance number 2023-01.
Great, thanks, Luke. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Tawny. Further discussion, Luke? Tawny? Anybody else?
I was just gonna ask you, Corey and Anna, can you just make clear to me, because this was very confusing to me. It says in here that they're also asking for a rezone a part of phase 1 to C4, but in the document in multiple places, it says phase 1 is already C4. So if phase 1 is already C4 and phase 1 includes a parking lot, why do we have to rezone it from C4 to C4?
Okay, so
Yeah.
if you look at the screen right here, this is how all of the phases that we are in the process of approving are laying out. This northern property here is in the C4 zone, and this is phase 1. However, they did have to rearrange the way the apartments laid out so that the parking was in the R4 zoning district that was on the parcel to the south of where the main development was. So what they're doing is basically cleaning it up instead of having you know, like a little sliver of R4 and then C4 again, just having the zoning amendment cover all of it so that it's all clean and, you know, and consistent. So that's the reason why we've included in that. It is not part of the development agreement. So that's how it differs, but they're both on the same parcel. And they are going to be going through a lot line adjustment so that it will, like all of phase 1 will be on one parcel and phase 3 will be on another parcel. So it'll all match up and look good in the long run, but that is the reason why we have the C4
Okay.
zone there.
Thanks. That makes sense with the lot line adjustment.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And if you want, we can do a little bit closer up of the layout. If you want to look at that.
No, it's okay now with the lot line adjustment. That makes sense.
All right.
Any other discussion? All right. Motion made by Luke. Oh, Lisa, yes?
Yeah. I have one thing I wanted to add. It's important that we, as you as the city council, authorize the city to sign only after the developer has signed it. All right, so the developer signs it first, and it should be fully executed before the end of the month.
Okay, that's the development agreement.
Yes.
Yes, okay, got it. Great, thanks for that. All right, motion to adopt ordinance number 2023-01, made by Luke, seconded by Tawny. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I also want to mention, my understanding is that you all have, there's been conversation about a signal at Agnew Boulevard, and that you guys have agreed to help support that if needed. So that's great. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wow. How does this happen?
Don't question small miracles.
All right. Thanks, Hannah and Corey. And thank you guys. All right. Now, where are we? We are up to Carly. City manager report.
Hey, good evening. I have a few announcements related to some public engagement that the city is embarking on in the next few weeks. First, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan Open House is April 19th from 4 to 6 at the Mark. The Parks Master Plan survey is still open, I believe, through the end of the month. You can access it through the website at moabcity.org/parks. If you haven't filled it out, please do. The Cane Creek Reconstruction Project Open House is also occurring April 27th from 5:30 to 7:30 at St. Francis Episcopal Church on Cane Creek. The value of that venue is that you can actually kind of go out into the and look at the road if people have questions about the vision. I think at your meetings with the mayor next week, Chuck is going to run some preliminary design by you guys to get some input as early as possible. We are trying to get that public engagement done quickly, so we are basically shovel ready by the time we get CIP funding this fall. The There's a water utility resource management plan focus group meeting. It was originally scheduled for April 20th, but there are scheduling conflicts for that. So we are going to be trying to find a better date for that. We also have just a lot of like public meetings in the week of April 20th. So we don't want to stack it so much that members of the community get fatigued. But we will be having a discussion of the like water resource management plan, water resource management generally at the April 25th City Council meeting, which we'll have a workshop on that. And then there's the focus group meeting, and then finally a public open house that will be scheduled in mid-May. We'll keep you updated on when that's going to happen. Emma Boulevard, the paving is set to occur within the next 2 weeks, depending on the weather. So that's almost wrapped up, really exciting. And related to flood preparedness, I'm attending a tabletop exercise tomorrow to do some emergency action planning. It's a huge group of people, and the Army Corps of Engineers is coordinating it. And so we're gearing up for a flood response if needed this spring. Sandbags are available now at multiple locations in town and in Spanish Valley. So originally we had them at the Public Works Yard, and I know that the roads department had them out, but we've expanded availability. The locations are accessible 24/7. There's a fire station on Westwater where you can get sandbags, a fire station on Beeman, over here at the Center Street Ballpark at 200 East and 50th South. The former Red Rock Elementary School property across from Rotary Park, you can get sandbags. They're also available at Moab City Public Works and the roads department in Grant County. All of the, yeah.
I think I had the time wrong though, Carly, on the little flyer.
Oh, the time. Oh,
Yeah,
you're
it's-
8 to 4. That's right. And so is the Public Works Yard.
It says 8 to 4, but County Roads is open 7 to 5:30.
7 to 5:30. Okay, we can update that on our social media page, but ours is 8 to 4 for Public Works. The rest of the locations are all 24/7. And that's all I have for you guys.
Thanks, Carly. All right, open it up for council reports. We'll start with you, Ronnie.
We had a Grand Water and Sewer Service Agency meeting on the 6th of April. One of the things they talked about was the interconnect that GWISA is working in collaboration with the city on. So just so you know, they did approve a see what they're calling this. I guess it's technically a work release, but basically an agreement with Sunrise Engineering that has a scope of work for that work. So I know acting manager Ben Musselman did mention that he'd been in touch with Chuck about that. So Chuck is aware of that. And let's see, they had a bunch of other interesting things going on. Board member Dale Weiss has been following up on grant opportunities discussed at the last MOP meeting that seemed like they are definitely going to be helpful to GWISA. And let's see, Ben mentioned the sod buyback efforts to expand that program at the state, and how the city and the county will need to have related ordinances in place. But it seems like GWISA is, just so you guys know, enthusiastic about that. And the county commission rep at GWISA is, do you want me to stop?
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
The county rep at GWISA is Trisha Dean, and so she can give us an update on what the county's doing there. And I know we've been talking about doing an ordinance. And let's see, also, Trish has followed up with Dr. Lockmer after his presentation at the MOP meeting about modeling, since a lot of people had discussed that we maybe have enough monitoring data now to start modeling. So she's been talking to Dr. Lockmer about working with a graduate student to potentially at the county do some modeling, so you guys are aware. So she's just looking at, so I was going to meet with her later in the week to find out what she's hoping to get out of that, but it's looking like it would be like 30 to 40 grand, which is better than some of the initial numbers that we heard. Like if hiring a firm, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the county's working on that on their end. The county also had Laurel Hagen recently look at their water rights. And so you can look at one of their recent meetings if you're interested in following that discussion. And let's see, we had, the mayor might have something she wants to add to the UMTRA Site Futures Committee met yesterday. We're just finalizing the draft 2023 community vision for the site. So some good last minute changes. I know they were going to share it with Lisa Church so she could just put some fresh eyes on it and maybe just a little editing tips if she has any. So I know that will be presented to the Moab Tailings Project Steering Committee at their April 25th meeting. That's from 3 to 5 if anyone's interested. And then from there, it would go before the city council and the county commission for approval. And I understand there will be a rollout process to the public after it goes on April 25th to the steering committee. Let's see what else. I just wanted to give a compliment to Richard Laurie and everybody working on the transportation program because I was at the library today and I heard 2 people talking about it. One was saying, have you ridden the shuttle yet? It's fantastic. So it's fun to hear conversations going on in town. Also, thanks staff who are involved in the recreation, the parks survey, because I went to the site. It's great. You can get background and instructions both in English and Spanish. And I know some of us got it by mail and other people have been going online. So that's exciting. And then I was just going to make a final request since we are going to have this water workshop on the 24th of April. I've already asked Carly and the mayor about this, but if that water workshop could not start until 5, because we are having the quarterly UMTRA meeting, and that is from 3 to 5, and there's a lot of pivotal stuff happening at that UMTRA meeting. So it'd be great if there wasn't overlap, both for the committee, but also for me, because I sit on the committee.
Yeah, we're planning to do it at 5. Is that it, Ronnie?
Mhm.
Thank you, Kaylin.
I attended a travel council meeting today, and in addition to the usual reviewing the advertising, their county is getting ready to do an RFP for an economic development plan. And so there was vigorous discussion about that, and just sort of what the scope would be, what the need is. Because of the changes in the allowed use of TRT funding, they've got to kind of, and the removal of economic diversification, they have to kind of rush through that and spend the money that they have.
By July, is that what it is? By July 1st?
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see that process unfold, but the scope of work looks good to me. I attended a Community Renewable Energy Agency board meeting, and that's rolling along. And then the Walnut Lane partner interviews. That was it.
Thanks, Kaylin. Jason.
I attended a responsible recreation meeting, which kind of the big discussion was trail ambassadors and trying to expand it to off-roading. And also there's discussion about having trail ambassadors be walking around town, and talking with people in town. There's still discussion on the billboard. They had some questions about one of the concepts of the billboard. I think Kaylin, you've probably seen them. They presented at Travel Council. I'm not sure.
There was discussion about it, but there was about the politics around it, but I
Yeah,
haven't
there's a lot
actually
of
seen the
politics around
design.
it. And I volunteered to take the billboard around and show some of the UTV companies, and it was a billboard that just said, "Welcome to our town, travel with respect." And it was interesting. One of the UTV companies, I only went to one of them, thought it was too sublime. They wanted something more forceful and stuff. And so it was pretty, and then I think after those comments, the Travel Council has taken it over and is going to have Love Communication do the billboards for or look at doing kind of a plan for driving respectfully in town, which I think I'm hoping that we can have a voice in that because they are in town, and so that was the only meeting I have. I have chamber board meeting tomorrow and some other meetings this week and stuff. But
So Jason, the chamber meeting tomorrow is with Flipco to talk about the timed interest system. Is that right?
That's a good question.
It's at, my understanding is it's at
Yeah,
5:30.
so there's a chat. Yeah, so there's a chamber board meeting that I'll be attending in the morning. And then there's a chamber chat in the afternoon. Yes.
Okay, and that one is Flipco coming down from the state to talk about the process to further along the timed entry system at Arches. So if anybody's interested in that, probably be good to go to find out what that process is, which is basically an environmental assessment and a NEPA process. And that'll allow us an opportunity to comment during that environmental assessment.
A federal NEPA analysis.
Yes, Flipco is, I don't know why Flipco's presenting this for the Park Service, but it's kind of odd because it's the Park Service's EA
Mhm.
and NEPA process. So interesting. But if you want to go, I would encourage, I'll probably go.
Can you repeat that date and time?
It's tomorrow at 5:30 at Zions Bank.
Down in the basement.
Thanks, Jason. Tawny.
Didn't have a whole lot. I met with Ben and Carly yesterday about our budget. And have a meeting on Thursday. And I think next week I have a meeting every night.
Next week, we're going to St.
Yep,
George.
I know.
Okay, thanks, Tawny.
That's it.
Luke.
Yeah. So Trail Mix will be co-hosting a facelift event with the Yosemite Climbing Association. It's organized by them in the North Face, May 5th and 6th. It's going to be an event to kind of do some trail cleanup and maintenance around the area. There's going to be a meeting point at the Mark on the 5th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Where there's going to be signups for projects and social gatherings. And then on the day of the 6th, there's going to be a 7 a.m. breakfast and lunch prep, and people are going to go out and work on the projects from 8 to 3 p.m., followed by a social hour from 5 to 6 and live music and food starting at 6 p.m. at the Mark. There is a local homeless council meeting tomorrow. Several local organizations have applied for grant funding for homeless specific projects. The council members just voted on prioritization of those. So hopefully we'll be hearing back soon about the awards for that. As it was mentioned earlier, this month is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So some of the activities for this month, there's going to be a virtual panel held on 13th at 2 p.m. The link can be found on Facebook or Seek Haven's website if you'd like to participate in that. They'll also be partnering with KZMU on the 17th. So if you'd like to submit any songs that you'd like to hear that day, feel free to reach out to them. The 13th, they're asking people to wear teal, which is the official color of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And then Seek Haven will also be co-sponsoring a diversity, equity, and inclusion training at the Mark on 26th, and RSVP is required. And then, yeah, I met with Carly and Ben about the budget earlier today and participated in the selection committee for the Walnut Lane partner. And yeah, I was just really excited to be a part of that, and looking forward to potentially being able to move forward on building some affordable housing in such a centrally located area in our community. And yeah, just things work out with that.
Great. Thanks, Luke. Couple things from me. Last week, Carly and Ben and I met with Colton Judd and Jade Powell from the Association of Governments office. We talked about the CDBG process, and I think we're going to be more proactive in being involved in that this year. We talked about the Main Street America program. I mentioned that to you at our last meeting, and also the transit program that the AOG has been involved in, and they would really like to see the program expanded through Southeast Utah. So that was an interesting conversation. Also met with the Park Service. They have a survey coming out very soon that compares economic data from 21 to 22 after the timed entry system went into place. So that'll be interesting information. They'll be sending that to us. I'll make sure that you guys all get a copy of that. There was also a survey done by Utah State in conjunction with the National Park Conservation Association about timed entry, and what they found is there's very few people that are dissatisfied and that people are very easily adaptable to the change. So that's positive. I'll be in Arches tomorrow with the National Park Conservation Association, Ashley Kornblatt, and the lead law enforcement ranger, Paul Larson, to just see how that program's going and just discuss other visitation management issues with the park. I'll be meeting with Jacques Hadler on Thursday to discuss joint city-county meeting process. We started doing that last year. It kind of fell apart. We want to continue to do that. So he and I are going to meet to figure out a really effective, meaningful, productive way to meet with the county and talk about certain topics that we think we need to be discussing. I don't know if you all remember, but last year you approved a regional haze letter that Ronnie and I were working on. And in case you haven't heard, this was a letter that we sent to the Environmental Protection Agency regarding pollution controls, particularly for the Hunter and Huntington coal plants. And last week, Rocky Mountain Power announced that those plants will be closing in early 2030 and be replaced with renewable energy sources. So that's good news on that front. And I think the communities, the reason that it's kind of a positive is the community is going to be gaining another energy source. So it's not going to be such a the coal plants are closing and nothing else is happening. Rocky Mountain is going to develop other ways to help their economy with renewable energy. And let's see, I'll be working on Carly's evaluation. Part of that evaluation included an employee satisfaction survey, which I'll share with you all. That's going to be part of her evaluation, and then I'll be working with you to help me develop her goals for the next year. I also need to coordinate meetings with you all next week. Tani and I and staff are going to be going to St. George on Wednesday. So if you have some availability Monday and Tuesday afternoon, that would be great. I'll have Sasha reach out to you. If for some reason that doesn't work with your schedules, we can maybe do a Zoom or something else. But I know that Chuck really wants to meet with you all to talk about Cane Creek Boulevard because that project needs to move. We need to keep that moving forward. So he wants to get your input on that. We'll also be talking about your meetings that you had with staff about the budget, see what you're thinking on those lines as well. So that's all I have. We will not be having a closed session this evening. And so with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Motion by Caitlin. Seconded by Tony. You guys have been on a roll tonight. All in favor?
Wait.
Yes.
No discussion.
Oh, no discussion. No.
No,
we're
I
just
wanna
going-
stay.
You guys want to hang out? All right, great. Thank you.
We have to vote.
Oh, all in favor.